I am, as a former Secretary of State, the Secretary of State in Louisiana is the Chief Elections Officer. I was the Secretary of State for 8 years. I was president of the National Organization of Secretaries of State. It was back in 1979 when Jimmy Fitzmaurice, the very well-known Lieutenant Governor of Louisiana, felt like the election was rigged and it was stolen from him in a race for governor where he didn't make the runoff. It was when Dave Tring was eventually elected. And so when I became elected in that race, when I was first elected Secretary of State, I appointed the former Secretary of State, Wade O. Martin, an institution been there for some 30 years, to head up a special elections integrity commission. And we looked through every instance of voter fraud. Now look, in some of our rural parishes particularly, someone may go into a nursing home and say, hey, Aunt Ellie, how about you filling out this vote, or do it with 10 or 15 votes. There's some hauling to the polls where people are told how to vote. But by and large, in the scheme of things, voter fraud just does not take place throughout this country. You don't have a uniform election system where where the federal government controls the whole process. You've got every individual state, and yes, there are some instances of fraud that develops, but by and large, we run pretty decent, honest elections. And I think that the Trump people and some of the others in the media screaming voter fraud are going to undermine the process, and no matter who wins, there's going to be screaming, the election was stolen, the election was stolen. That's not good for democracy. That's not good for the system. And I think these folks are being a great disservice, because if you look at it responsibly, there is very little chance this election is going to be stolen by anybody.
Okay, so let me just play devil's advocate. As you know, I mean, no question about it, I am not a fan of Donald Trump. I will not vote for Donald Trump. But, you know, out of fairness, because nobody here is to argue the other side, so I'll go ahead and try my very best. And that is that what you have right now is you have the WikiLeaks and showing how calculating the Clinton campaign is and how calculating she is. You have the media who has come out, I mean, I've never seen it before like this, but publications that have never, ever decided to back a candidate, endorse a candidate, have done so, USA Today being one. You have conservative publications all over the place, except I think today there was one that came out, I think out of Missouri, came out for Donald Trump, but every other publication that I have seen has either come out against Donald Trump or has come out and basically said, hey, you know, I don't care, just, you know, we're voting for Hillary. We think you should. You know, you have the national media that has been fixated on this sex scandal, the tape scandal, and I guess I'm sure you could probably name a few others. I'm sure I didn't do a very good job in articulating the way that Trump has done and some of his supporters have done. But I mean, why can't those people who are voting for Clinton, why can't they at least accept the fact that, gee, I mean, this thing is rigged in favor of Hillary, rigged, you know, by the media. You know, it's just rigged. Why can't they accept that?
Well, Steve, let's go back to the beginning when this whole presidential election got started. You had 17 candidates that were running for the Republican nomination. Donald Trump, to many, was a buffoon. He was a showman. He went over the top. He just was an irritant who was in the mix till we could get him away from him and get to the Jeb Bushes and get to the other candidates who were obviously going to win. I'll tell you, when he first started, you could not turn on a television set where the media coverage. They didn't cover the other candidates that way. he got 10 times the creation of the media. He was a creation. And then Trump gets his ego up and starts attacking some, when you talk about the media, you're the media, Steve. I'm the media. YouTube's the media. Websites galore are the media. NFL football games are 30% off this year because people aren't watching football anymore. They're going to alternative media. So as a consequence, the New York Times is one paper that has some influence. You don't watch the news. My daughter used to be the anchor for the NBC Nightly News, backing up Tom Brokaw. She was the heir apparent to Tom Brokaw until she retired from media. And back then it was about 8 million. Now there's less than 5, maybe 4.5 million people even watching the evening news. So the media covers the gamut. Fox News is not mainstream media. They have supported Trump initially. They're mainstream. But the Wall Street Journal, all these conservative publications have been pounding Trump because of Trump's actions. Once they made him, he turned on them, Steve, and he got irritated. Once one publication got under his skin, he castigated all the publications. So I think Trump's brought this on himself, quite frankly. If he'd have stayed focused on what got him there in the first place, kind of honed in, got some little substance to him with some good advisors, Trump would have not been beaten up like this in the media. But he's been so overboard in his tweets, number one, and number two, he's been attacking the very people that created him. So I don't buy that at all, that Donald Trump, the poor old Donald, all the media's beating up on the guy. The guy is completely over the top in so much what he says. He continually blasts the media. The election's rigged. The media's controlling this thing. When there's a good number of folks in the media who were very supportive. So there's a balance out there, because it's not a couple of corporate giants that run the whole media, Steve, like it was at one point in time. When you go back to when you and I were growing up, you had 3 news organizations. You had the Associated Press would put out the stuff with UPI to the newspapers, and you had NBC, CBS, and you had ABC. And that was it. That's where you got all your, now people get news from all over the spectrum. So again, my conclusion is that the media that Trump is beating up on so much created him. Without them, he would have never been where he is today. And because of his attacks on them, yes, they're being very negative on him, but I think he brought it on himself, quite frankly.
Yeah, and talking about the media, actually, I got to tell you, I mean, what you've said is exactly the position I've taken for quite a long period of time. And let me just add to that. I mean, I wrote a post yesterday on the other day on Facebook, basically saying the same thing. Okay, media, what are you talking about? I mean, the thing is that if you don't like what CNN or say Fox or NBC or ABC, has to say, turn it off. Okay, I mean, you know where to get the news that you want. I mean, honestly, truly, you can go to Facebook, and among the people that agree with you, darn well that you can get everything you want. It's like Alice's Restaurant, and you can get whatever you want, and so can those people who are independents. If they're dissatisfied with the content that they're receiving, and they want to get other content, I mean, they're free to do so. It's not like we are dependent upon, as you mentioned, 3 dominant networks in the past, a bunch of dominant newspapers in the past. Now you have, I mean, everywhere you look on the internet, you have as many conservative sites as you have, say, quote, liberal or mainstream media sites. So, to blame the media is just astounding, and it's obnoxious. And I think it's in many respects, it's un-American for the reasons that I want to get to in a few minutes. In addition to that, as far as I'm concerned,
no doubt.
In addition, as far as I'm concerned, Donald Trump is absolutely responsible for the bad media that he's receiving. Look, last Sunday, he carted out these 4 women, and he made a big issue. Hey, believe the women, believe the women. That's what he said, believe the women. And so he got caught the next day. He got caught. And now he's saying, don't believe the women. My God, there's an incredible pure hypocrisy in a matter of 24-hour news cycle. That's not newsworthy. That's not newsworthy when these women come out and they articulate what their issues were. And let me tell you something. You remember this, Bill. Jim, I'm sorry. You remember this, that basically what we had was with Bill Clinton, who I was thinking of, you had Bill Clinton going after these women through his campaign and others, his supporters. And yeah, to some extent, Hillary Clinton. And guess what happened? What happened was you had in this election, you had the Trump people saying, well, Hillary's an enabler, and why can't you trust the women? Well, these women came out 20 years after the fact, okay? And no different than what these women are coming out in terms of Donald Trump. It wasn't just right afterwards. It was after one person came out. Okay, they felt comfortable. They felt like that they had comfort in the masses. I believe the women with respect to Bill Clinton, and I got to tell you, I believe the women as relates to Donald Trump. And I think that when Donald Trump, out of his lack of defense, begins to say, don't believe those women, but believe those women, I'm sorry, you can't be believed at all. And when you get out there and you start slamming these women, calling them liars, but worse than that, trying to defend yourself by saying that you would not have sex with them because of the way they look, because there's no other explanation for the vileness of your statements. Forgive me, but you have no place in the marketplace of political and democratic ideas.